Hey guys, Snoopy here. Today we're doing a different kind of video. We're asking the question, should we late back Oath? I'm making this video for a few reasons. One is that Oath has gone through a lot of development in this expansion of New Foundation specifically, and there's not a lot of videos or coverage on it besides just what Leader Games has put out. And then second, when I went to check my pledge, I realized that I just did the dollar level and never adjusted it. So I needed to make a decision myself on what level I'm going to back for this expansion. And then third, I think a lot of the time there is a FOMO or fear of missing out with expansions, even with Leader Games when they give you a long time to late pledge. There's still that issue of, oh, I didn't know about it, or oh, I didn't realize that's what this exactly was. Um, and so trying to talk through, how to best think about backing board games, but specifically with Leader Games in general, kind of how they operate and kind of whether to back or late back in this case, or just kind of wait for the retail release. So with that, let's just kind of give a quick summary of what happened with this campaign. So this campaign started in May 2024. It was about a month long, and they got over 10,000 backers, and the pledge level reached almost $1 million. So that's incredible. It's really great, especially because this is an expansion, or in this case, an ambitious new expansion. And we'll kind of get to what exactly that means in a second. But here they have the video, standard Kickstarter layout. So here is the first pledge. So this is the new stuff. So they're calling it New Foundations. And so you're going to have family and generations and traits and curses. They're going to have deluxe tiles to govern the empire to change kind of different aspects of the empire. There's a new chronicle phase. They're going to add a new denizen deck. And so if you haven't played Oath in a long time or have never played Oath, the world deck is the main deck of cards you use. It's about 200 cards, but you only use about 60 or so in a given game. And so this is giving you 60 unique or 50 unique cards. There's also going to be deluxe components. And this is bonus content you get for free by doing the Kickstarter. So that's why it says, hey, this is a $95 value, but you're going to get it for just pledging $50 plus tax and shipping. So seems like a really great deal. And then another expansion they're doing is a Clockwork Adversaries. So this is kind of a solo mode, or you can add these bots to a lower player count game to kind of make it feel like a more fuller game of Oath, like a 4 or 5 player game, even 6 player game with just 3 or 2 players. And then you also get the bonus content for just doing this. So this is a $40 pledge, but you get $85 of value. Or you can just get all the new stuff. So you get New Foundations and the Clockwork Adversaries, and then you get a copy of each of these things. So basically, if you pledge anything, you're going to get about $45 in extra value. And then if you don't have Oath at all, you can, do this high pledge level. It's $200. And we'll keep this in mind. So this is important because if you don't have Oath and you want to get the expansion, how much is it going to cost you to go all in, so to speak? So $200 for everything, and they're going to get you some extra things too, which is neat. All right, so what happened? And the reason I asked what happened is if you look at the rewards page, it says estimated delivery November 2025. Well, I'm making that video now, and Oath hasn't shipped yet, and it's not close to shipping yet. It's going to be probably another 3, possibly 5 months before it ships. Now, it could be sooner than that. It just depends on Chinese New Year and when they finish making all the games and pieces and whatnot and put it on the boats. But yeah, it's going to be a minute before it gets to backers. So what happened? And so, like with any Kickstarter, you can look at the updates, and we are just going to go straight to the beginning. And the reason I'm doing this too is just to kind of show, if you haven't backed Leader Games before, generally how they kind of go about things. So you see here, okay, the first update, they were funded in 18 minutes. So that's incredible. It's great. Then they have their standard updates like, hey, here's Kyle Farron who does the art, and kind of here's what you can expect. They have some studio chats and things like that. And again, this is all to continue to drive people in, get people to back the expansion. And so there, it ended in June 18th, 2024. And we got the numbers. And then there's the big thank you. And then some general updates. So now we're in June, right? So we're in June. So July, August, September. So about 3 months later, we get an update from Cole, who's the chief designer over this expansion. And then we get another update in October, so a month later. And then we don't get an update in November, but we get one in December. So about 2 months. And if we go through these, it's about 2 months generally. So February, April, and we get one in May. Another one in May, just updating this link. And then we get one in July, so none in June, but one in July, then none in August, but then September. And this update we're going to camp out on, actually, because this is kind of a good summary of what exactly happened. And then we got one just a few weeks ago in November. So this update, schedule and development update in September. And so this is where we see the Pledge Manager will remain open for the rest of the year. So if you're seeing this in 2025, you can still wait back this expansion for Oath. And so here, Cole clarifies what you're getting. So here he says, they're kind of juggling what's going to be in this box. And so they kind of move stuff around. And so what you're getting in the new Foundations expansion is 2 additional player colors. So previously that was in the deluxe components. 30 legacy cards. That's a new thing. A dual layered foundation board, again, new thing. New banners, so that's going to replace your old banners. 30 edifices, and it's not clear here, but that's going to replace your old edifice cards. A set of Chronicle Task cards, that's new. And a set of Bandit Warbands, which is also new. So they're going to have for revised components that will replace upgrade components from the base game. This includes an expanded relic deck. Again, so this is a revised, so this is going to replace your relic deck. And yes, you're going to get twice as many, but it's replacing that. A revised set of sites. So again, you're replacing your site cards with new sites. 30 adjusted denizen cards, so it's taking about 30 of those old world deck cards and switching them out. And then a new set of player boards and aids. Okay, so this is where he has a link to the rulebook. So he has a shorter one that says, hey, welcome back. Here's what's different. And we'll take a look at that. And then here, the comprehensive rulebook. And so you're going to get a new set of denizen cards. So that's updated from 50 to 60. And so you can use this in your current game of Oath, the new version of Oath, or you can even start a game with these new cards. And so then with the deluxe components, since they're taking out some of the things like the player colors and moving it into just the expansion, they're going to give you another type of favor coin, so 3 instead of just the 1. Yeah, so it's some value. And then Clockwork Adversary, so this is the other expansion option. And so now they're going to say that they're changing it to add the Queen of Shadows in the title. And that is its own bot that will allow you to play a co-op mode, basically. And it looks awesome. I'm very excited about that. And I'll have a link to Liz. She had made a video on explaining it. And so I'll have a link to her video on that. This is what she looks like. So pretty awesome. Storage box. So this is new. So basically, the box will be the size of the Arc Spliced Reach expansion box. And it's going to allow you to just store everything in one box and have similar solution ideas as the Arcs campaign box. The issue is that box is $50. So remember how I said $200 is a good ballpark for what you would need? Well, now we're going to add $50 to that. So it'll be $250 to get everything now. So Oath, the components, all that stuff. So it is a little little pricier than it was. All right, so they wanted to tighten the foundation. So this is where Cole really gets to explaining what exactly was their motivations in changing this. And they took 6 months here, he says, on figuring out what liabilities they had in Oath and try to make it a better game. Now, I want to pause here just to kind of give an analogy for what exactly this expansion is. This is more of a remodel. So let's say you had a bathroom that was just a half bath, but you think you could put, a shower in, so 3/4 bath or whatever. To do that, you got to take everything out. And so they took everything out of Oath. They added in this new foundation system. And as they're doing that, they realized that they had to remove or change other things too that wasn't necessarily part of the idea. So in this example, let's say it would be the plumbing. So some of the plumbing in the basement wasn't exactly how it needed to be, so they had to do some extra work there. And then they had to do some extra work on the vent because it wasn't in the right spot. And on we go, right? So you can continue that analogy as a remodel. And so as they're remodeling, it's not just piecemeal. It has to be all or nothing. So either you finish the bathroom with the shower and everything else, or you don't. You can't just do halfway. And that's kind of what we see with this expansion is it's not piecemeal. It's all new foundations or nothing. And so in a sense, this is a new version of Oath. I think Cole at one point called it, Oath 1.5. It may be better to say like Oath 2 or Oath reimagined, just because this is a different game. And so let's look at the rulebook here. So returning to Oath. So this is the condensed rulebook on what's changed. And again, love the art here. And so here it says, new foundations expansion is all or nothing. Its elements cannot be introduced one by one. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, let's look at the replaced components here. So all player boards replaced. All relic cards replaced. The banner cards replaced. All site cards replaced. And notice, base Oath had 23 sites. New Foundations has just 17. And we'll get to why in a second. World Box replaced. Bandit tokens, they're going to have actual warbands. All Vision cards replaced. All Edifice cards replaced. Distant cards, there's about 30 distant cards. Those are replaced. Reliquary board, it says removed, but it's basically replaced with something else. And this is what it's replaced with: the Foundation board and Legacy cards and Chronicle task cards. So, this is why I say when we use the analogy of a remodel, you got to remove stuff. And this is a lot of stuff we're taking rid of. Now, again, it's not like removed from the game, right? Because we're going to get new player boards. We're going to get new site cards. We're going to get new relic cards. We're going to get new banners. We're going to get a new world box. But the question remains, if we're replacing all this stuff, then why not just make a new version where you don't have to replace all this stuff? Where I don't have to get rid of 50 cards right when I get my game because I just got the expansion too, right? So unfortunately, that's just how this expansion is. And my guess is that they may just make a version of Oath that just has new foundations just in it, so you don't have to throw away 50 plus cards. But let's get into the details then of why they're doing this. Because again, they're not doing this just because they spent 18 months so far in developing this, and the goal was to get this shipped in 18 months, right? So they spent much more time than they anticipated in getting this right. So why did it take so long? What is the fruit of their labor, so to speak? So they have eras, and so this is where they're introducing a point system. So um, you can basically play several games of Oath and have a clear winner instead of just having it ambiguous ending. It can have a clear end, and then in your first game, you're gonna have all sites start face up. Everyone's gonna start as exile. Homeland cards have a new site type, and they're gonna have an edifice to start. You're gonna set favor banks differently, and then you're gonna have more bandits on certain places, and then every player starts with the legacy, and then no one starts with the Oath Keeper title, and so you're gonna have some special rules for exile only games, and that's all very, very exciting because it's very fun. And then you have a new Chronicle phase. So if you have the Darkest Secret, then you get this bonus point possibility, and then you get to do these extra things in the Chronicle. And then you have the foundations. So you have these 6 tiles and they're double sided, so it kind of turns things on or off. And so this one says, banks start empty, but all players start with 4 additional favor versus the normal setup with favor banks. So, yeah, it's quite cool. And I think this is where people who backed Oath, the new Foundations expansion, this is what they're looking for. This is what they were excited about. And this is what they talked about a lot at first. But they also talked about sites. And so this is kind of how it ended up. So instead of doing like clear sleeves and adding things to the existing sites, they just redid all the sites. So this is what the new site cards look like. And so you got starting resources. So secrets are here. You got defense dice, which is new. So if the site is targeted, the defender collects 2 defense dice. And then you have the site power. And then you have Redesigned capacity. So it's just 1 of that. And then you have a relic capacity of 2. And then recover difficulty. So this is new. And that's a 4. So this is why the site cards are replaced, is because some of the sites were just not interesting or fun in base game Oath, and so they wanted to make all the sites great, and so they just ended up with a lower number, but you don't have any duds is the idea. Like, all the sites are great, even if it's a less number, and the sites are more clear, but because of some of the other changes they've done, you have to use the new sites. You can't keep your old sites. And so this is one of the changes. And so here's some of the powers. And so again, these are things that were just, this is all the site did, was this idea of like an island or a coast. And then Homelands is new, but that now this is going to be on multiple locations. It's not just exclusive to one type. So for example, this site Power Mountain means traveling to this site costs 1 more supply. So it has this plus this defense. So it allows for more texture, if you will, on these sites. And bandits are real warbands now. So bandits fill empty sites. And so it's going to be equal to its denizen capacity. So bandits, it's not just going to be 1, it could be 2 or 3. And so it's, yeah, I think it's more logical sense. And then you have resources. So it's now harder to take resources. So you only take a secret or a favor if no other pawns are there. So that is a little tricky now. And all sites are stored in the Atlas box, not just sites that were used in the next game. And during the Chronicle phase, most sites that aren't ruled by the winner get discarded. In later games, these lost sites may reappear again, with those cards giving a unique geography to your area. So this is where you have more choices on how to set up the world. So you can be more exploring new places, or you can just go back to kind of what we did last time. And then, so some of the actions have changed. So again, going back to the remodeling analogy, some things just were clunky in Oath and hard to teach or hard to explain, so they've made it simpler. Um, and so with trading for secrets, you don't do 2 favor on empty cards. Instead, you put just 1 favor, and then you burn a favor. So that makes it harder to chain secrets and kind of do some crazy combos. And then mustering, instead of just getting war bands, it's now just like trading for favor. And so you can get 1 or 2 or 3. And so this makes it more intuitive. So if you can teach mustering and teach trading for favor, you kind of teach them both together. And then recovering has changed. So now the recover action only lets you take a relic. Banners are now taken with the challenge action. So that's a new action. And then with recover, you roll 2 defense dice, and then you add up the shields. And if it's beats whatever is on the sight card, you get it. And then you can spend more supply to roll 2 more dice. And so generally to recover now, depending on what it says, it could take you 2 supply to recover instead of just 1. It also means that you're generally not burning secrets or favor or doing other things to get relics. It's just a net supply action, which is nice. So if you roll more of the shields, then the sights recover. So again, this is a 5. You need 6 to get this. And you place it face down. And then here's a note. Face down relics, yes, you can get face down relics. And so you reveal them as a minor action on your turn. While they have no power, they don't count towards your victory goals, but they cannot be stolen from you in a campaign if they're face down. Here we have the challenge action. So you spend 1 supply and choose a banner. If the enemy holds it, you must be at the same site as that player. And then, you just have to have more favor than what favors on it or secret. So this is similar, but you're not checking for advisors now. That was a rule for the Darkest Secret. So now it's just being in the same place. So yeah, it is just more intuitive, more simple. And so I think overall the changes are simplifying the game, which is always a good thing. And then campaigning has also changed. So this is how you fought or took stuff. And so you have conquest and raids. So those are 2 different types of campaigning now. And so it just splits your ability to target sites and then target the pawn. So you can't target both in the same campaign. So conquest is just targeting sites. And so you just add defense dice based on the targeted sites. So now instead of counting war bands and things like that, I'm just looking at the sites and the dice on them. Versus raid, it works like targeting the pawn from the base game. So it adds 2 defense dice as shown on the player board, and you can target any of its banners and face up relics. You can no longer target the pawn's site if the defender rules it, and victory now discards all the defender's face down cards, including relics. So even though your face down relics are safe from being stolen, if you lose, you just don't have them anymore. They're just discarded, which is pretty rough. Another big difference is the attacker chooses how many warbands they want to sacrifice before the defense rolls, not after. So this is huge. That was a big thing that attacker's advantage had, was that they can see what the result was and then make up the difference. Now that's not possible. Now you're gonna have to give your best guess. So it is exciting, but it is a difference. So and then you have the banners, and so again, some of them are a little different. And then we have negotiations, so citizenship and exile. So those are all different now. So much more simpler. And so offering citizenship is now just part of a negotiation minor action. And so you can basically always negotiate and other things. So ruin edifices no longer prevent the trade and muster action, which is great. Conspiracy simplified. Burying cards is a new idea. So you put on the bottom of the world deck instead of putting in the discard for this. So ignores the chain restriction. So that's great. So you can bury cards that are normally like permanent or stuck. Um, and yeah, so there's some other changes, but that's the main stuff here. So quite a lot of changes. And let's look at this last update here. So this was in November. So final layout and new samples arrive. So here's what the components will look like. So they're doing a final pass here. So the hope is to get this in before Christmas, so that way it can be printed and put on boats before Chinese New Year. Here's an example of the new box, the big box for Oath. Kind of what they'll look like. And but yeah, so, and here's the new components for the Clockwork Adversaries. And then here's what the new components. So this is what it was, but they're going back to the red color, which I think is much better. And then the bigger number 3 for the favor. Okay, so what do we do? What are we going to back? So as we think about this expansion, it's $50 for new foundations. You're going to get a couple extra things. The Clockwork is $40 added onto that. You're not going to get more extra things, so we're looking at $90 for both those things. If you want the big box, that's $50. So now we're at $140 plus shipping, which in the US is about $23 with all that stuff. So we're at $160, $165 for a new version of Oath that still requires you to have Oath. So Oath retail is 100, 120 or so. You can find it cheaper. You can find it on sale. That's what I did. So that's the other piece of this, is that you can get Oath in this new expansion probably for cheaper if you wait a couple years. But that's not the only reason why we get board games. And this is why I'm going to make the case you should late pledge now, even if it's just new foundations. So the pitch I have for you is that Leader Games is a smaller board game studio. They went out of their way to make something very ambitious, and they've already made their money. Like, they've already made $1 million off of this, and all the money they get now isn't going to Oath as much as it's going to their next projects. And so they have a new board game on Kickstarter that hasn't been started yet, but you can see the landing page called Take. So if you late pledge now, it's going to help that. It's going to help the next Arcs campaign expansion, whatever that will be, probably in 3 years at this point. But, the reason you back on Kickstarter versus just waiting for retail is because the money is going to them directly. So it's going to Kyle Ferrand, the artist. It's going to Cole Worley. It's going to the graphic designers. It's going to their support staff. They have a really great support team. So that's my pitch for why you should think about late backing Oath. But I get it. If you bought Oath at the original Kickstarter 5 years ago and got it, opened it, tried to play it, and everyone hated it, and now it just sits on your shelf collecting dust, and you're really hoping this will finally let you play Oath with your friends, it could. It really could, but there's a chance it won't. And now, instead of just paying $100, now you've spent even more money on a game that looks really pretty and sounds really fun, but it's just tough. And this is why I will say the Clockwork Adversaries is a really important piece to this, is that it does allow you to play solo in a much more engaging way. It allows you to play a co-op mode, which is huge if you have people who just don't like competitive games. It will let them play Oath and like Oath without that meanness to it, perhaps. And then maybe they will like Oath enough to where they can play it just the regular way without the Clockwork Adversaries. But that's my pitch. So If you've already backed Oath and you're excited about that big box, let me know. Um, Otherwise, that's all I had. Thanks.